unpack something pretty interesting, the world of chief security officers, or, CSOs as they're known. Now, you might think this is only relevant for, like big tech companies, but trust me, after this deep dive, you'll see why CSOs are becoming super important for businesses of all shapes and sizes. And maybe even for you personally. We're looking at some insights from information systems engineers, a company that lives and breathes security.
What's fascinating here is that information systems engineers doesn't just stop at the obvious stuff like cameras and firewalls.
Right.
They were founded by Ricardo Van Ramen, who's been in the IT world for over 35 years.
Wow.
So they take a much broader approach to security, encompassing everything from physical spaces to cybersecurity and data protection.
So they've seen the evolution of security threats firsthand.
Oh, absolutely.
And speaking of evolution, the role of a CSO has really transformed, hasn't it? It's not just about the tech anymore.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We've seen a dramatic shift from a purely technical focus to a much more strategic one. Today's CSO is involved in risk assessment, creating those big picture security strategies, and even shaping the culture of security within an entire organization.
That makes sense. If everyone from the top down understands the importance of security, it's going to create a much stronger defense. But let's get specific. What kind of services does a CSO actually provide?
Information systems engineers breaks it down into several key areas.
Okay.
And what's really helpful for our listener is that they tailor these services to each business's unique needs. One of the most critical areas, of course, is cybersecurity and information security.
Yeah.
And we're not just talking about, those everyday threats like malware and phishing.
Right, because those are just the tip of the iceberg, right?
Yeah.
I'm curious, what are some of the more advanced threats that businesses need to be aware of?
Yeah. One area we're seeing a surge in is ransomware attacks, where cyber criminals actually hold your data hostage until you pay a ransom. And these attacks are getting incredibly sophisticated, targeting not just, big corporations, but also smaller businesses who might think they're under the radar.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's easy to think it won't happen to me, but clearly no one is immune. So how does a CSO actually help defend against these kinds of threats?
Well, it's multi-layered. They'll implement a range of security measures, evaluate those critical IT systems like firewalls and antivirus software, and even guide a company through incident response if a breach does occur. But one of the most crucial roles they play is in education, training employees to recognize and avoid these evolving threats.
So it's almost like having a security coach for your entire team.
Exactly. Because sometimes the weakest link in your security chain is human error.
That's a great point. And it's not just about the digital world, right? Information systems engineers also emphasizes the importance of physical security.
Right. It's about creating a secure environment in a physical sense.
Yeah.
Going beyond just cameras and guards.
Yeah.
A good CSO will help you think about things like emergency plans, evacuation protocols, and even the design of a building itself to minimize security risks.
So it's like thinking about security in 3D, right? You've got your digital defenses, you've got your physical barriers, and then the human element all working together. I'm seeing how this goes way beyond just installing some software. But what about companies that maybe don't need a full-time CSO on staff? Information systems engineers offer something called interim CSO services, which seems like a really interesting concept.
Yeah, this can be a game changer, particularly for smaller businesses or those with, specific short-term security needs.
Yeah.
It allows them to tap into that high-level expertise without the commitment and cost of a full-time position.
It's like having a security expert on call,
Right.
ready to step in when needed.
Exactly. And it's incredibly flexible, scaling to fit the company's specific needs. Maybe they need help navigating a new regulation, conducting a security audit, or responding to a specific incident.
That makes a lot of sense. So we've touched on cybersecurity, both digital and physical, and how a CSO can be a valuable resource even on a temporary basis. But one area I'm really intrigued by is incident response and forensics. What happens when a company actually experiences a security breach?
It can be a chaotic situation, especially if you don't have a plan in place.
Right.
Imagine a company discovers unusual activity on their network, maybe unauthorized access to sensitive data or systems behaving strangely. That's when the CSO steps in, acting almost like a detective to investigate the breach.
So they're piecing together the digital clues to figure out what happened and how to contain the damage.
Precisely. They use forensic techniques to identify the source of the breach, figure out what data was compromised, and then develop a recovery plan to get things back on track.
I bet that takes a very specific skill set, being able to stay calm under pressure and think strategically in a crisis.
It absolutely does, and it highlights why having access to a CSO, whether full-time or on an interim basis, can be so crucial. They bring that experience and expertise to a situation that could otherwise be incredibly overwhelming.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground already, but there's one more piece I want to delve into before we move on. Information Systems Engineers talks about the importance of governance, risk, and compliance, or GRC, which sounds very official.
Yeah.
What exactly does that entail, and how does it relate to the role of a CSO?
GRC is all about building a security framework that's both effective and tailored to the company's specific operations. Think of it as aligning security measures with business goals in those sometimes complex regulatory landscapes.
Okay, so it's not just about putting security measures in place, it's about making sure those measures actually work for the business and meet the necessary standards.
Exactly. And one of the key standards in this area is ISO 27001, which is an internationally recognized framework for managing information security.
So getting the ISO 27001 certification is like a stamp of approval, showing that a company is serious about its security.
Precisely. It provides a framework for establishing, implementing, maintaining, and continually improving an information security management system, or ISMS. Having that certification can be a real differentiator for businesses, building trust with customers and partners who know that their data is being handled responsibly.
And I imagine a CSO would play a key role in helping a company achieve that certification.
Absolutely. They guide the company through the entire process, from conducting risk assessments and implementing security controls to documenting policies and procedures. It's a pretty rigorous process, but it's well worth it for the peace of mind it provides.
Now, I want to touch on something we discussed earlier, the human element of security. Information Systems Engineer seems to really emphasize the importance of training and awareness campaigns for employees. Why is that such a critical part of a CSO's work?
Think of it this way. You can have the most sophisticated security technology in the world, but if your employees are clicking on phishing links or using weak passwords, it's all for nothing. A CSO understands that people are often the weakest link in the security chain.
So it's about building those human firewalls, making sure everyone in the company is aware of the risks and knows how to protect themselves and the company's data.
Exactly. And that's where training and awareness campaigns come in. A good CSO will develop engaging and interactive programs that teach employees about different types of threats, like phishing scams, social engineering tactics, and the importance of strong password hygiene.
So it's not just about lecturing people about security protocols, it's about making it relevant to their everyday work and giving them the tools they need to make smart decisions.
Right. Because security isn't just an IT issue, it's everyone's responsibility. A CSO will empower employees to become active participants in the company's security posture.
I like that. Active participants. It's a team effort, not just something that's dictated from the top down. Now, Information Systems Engineers also offer some other interesting services like risk management and technology advisory services. How did those fit into the bigger picture of what a CSO does?
Risk management is all about identifying, assessing, and mitigating potential risks to the company.
Okay.
And this goes beyond just cybersecurity threats. It could involve things like natural disasters, supply chain disruptions, or even internal threats.
So it's about having a plan in place for those what-if scenarios, no matter what form they take.
Exactly. And the CSO plays a key role in developing those plans, working with different departments to ensure business continuity, even in the face of unexpected challenges.
Now, when it comes to technology advisory services, I imagine this is where a CSO's deep understanding of the security landscape really comes into play.
Absolutely. They can help companies make informed decisions about the security technologies they need, evaluating different vendors and solutions to find the best fit for the company's specific requirements.
So it's like having a trusted guide in a world that can be overwhelming, especially with so many new security products and services popping up all the time.
Exactly. They can cut through the noise, assess the company's existing IT infrastructure, and recommend improvements to strengthen the overall security posture.
So it's not just about buying the latest and greatest security gadget. It's about making sure those tools are actually effective and integrated properly.
Precisely. A CSO will take a holistic approach, ensuring that all the pieces of the security puzzle fit together seamlessly.
We've covered a lot of ground when it comes to the services a CSO can provide, but let's shift gears a bit and talk about why someone might choose to work with information systems engineers specifically. What sets them apart in this space?
Their Why Choose ISE section highlights their key differentiators. And one that stands out is their personalized approach.
Okay.
They recognize that no two businesses are alike, and they tailor their services to fit each client's unique needs and risk profile.
So it's not about pushing a one-size-fits-all solution. It's about really understanding the client's business and developing a custom strategy.
That's right. They take the time to understand the client's industry, their specific security concerns, and their overall business goals. That way, they can create a security plan that's not just effective, but also aligns with the company's mission and values.
I can see how that personalized approach would be really appealing, especially for companies that might feel intimidated by the complexity of security. But let's be realistic. High-quality security services can be expensive. How does information systems engineers address the issue of cost-effectiveness?
They actually highlight that their services can be more affordable than hiring a full-time security team, especially for smaller businesses. Think about it. You're getting access to seasoned security professionals without the overhead of salaries, benefits, and all the other costs associated with a full-time employee.
So it's like getting the expertise of a whole security department, but at a fraction of the cost.
Exactly. And for many businesses, especially those with limited budgets, that could be a real game changer.
Now, one thing that really resonated with me in their messaging is the emphasis on proactive security. What does that look like in practice?
It's about being proactive, anticipating threats and building defenses in advance, rather than just reacting after an incident has occurred.
Right.
A CSO will help identify potential vulnerabilities, implement security measures, and educate employees about best practices to prevent breaches from happening in the first place.
So it's about shifting the mindset from damage control to damage prevention.
Exactly. It's about building a security culture that's embedded in every aspect of the company's operations.
We've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive, from the evolving role of the CSO to the range of services they provide. But before we wrap up, I want to turn it over to you, our listener. What are your key takeaways from this conversation?
What resonated with you most about the need for a CSO in today's business world? Did any of the services we discussed stand out as particularly relevant to your own work or maybe even your personal life?
Yeah, I think it's really eye-opening to see how much goes on behind the scenes to protect businesses and individuals from, those ever-evolving security threats. It's not just about having the latest antivirus software, right? It's about having a comprehensive strategy that takes into account technology, physical security, and even human behavior.
And it's interesting to consider how those different elements work together. We've talked about how a CSO can help companies navigate complex regulations, implement training programs, and respond to incidents. But what about those bigger picture questions? How does a CSO actually impact the culture of an organization?
That's a great question. It seems like having a CSO on board, even on a temporary basis, would send a strong message to employees, customers, and partners that the company takes security seriously.
It absolutely does. It shows a commitment to protecting data, systems, and ultimately the people who rely on those systems. A good CSO can help foster a culture of security awareness, where everyone understands their role in keeping the company safe.
So it's not just about compliance, it's about creating a sense of shared responsibility.
Precisely. And that can lead to a more secure and resilient organization overall. Now, one area we didn't dive deep into is the financial impact of security breaches.
Right.
It's easy to focus on the technical aspects, but the reality is that these breaches can have a devastating financial impact on businesses.
Yeah, it's not just about lost data. It's about lost revenue, legal fees, reputational damage. The costs can quickly spiral out of control.
Exactly. And that's another area where a CSO can provide immense value. By implementing strong security measures and proactive strategies, they can help companies avoid those costly breaches and protect their bottom line.
It's almost like an insurance policy, but instead of just paying out after the damage is done, they're helping you avoid the damage altogether.
That's a great way to put it. They're investing in security up front to protect the company's long-term interests.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave our listener with a few key takeaways. We've seen how the role of the CSO has evolved beyond just the technical side of things, encompassing strategic planning, risk management, and even shaping the culture of an organization.
And we've explored the range of services a CSO can provide, from cybersecurity and physical security to incident response and regulatory compliance.
But perhaps the most important takeaway is that security is everyone's responsibility. It's not just something you outsource to a CSO or an IT department. It requires active participation from everyone in the organization, from the top down.
And it's an ongoing process, not a one-time fix. The threat landscape is constantly evolving, so staying ahead of the curve requires constant vigilance and a willingness to adapt.
So to our listener, as you go about your day, consider how the insights we've discussed might apply to your own life, whether you're a business owner, an employee, or simply someone who cares about protecting their personal information.
Think about the importance of strong passwords, being cautious about phishing emails, and staying informed about the latest security threats.
And if you're in a position to make decisions about security for your company, consider the value that a CSO could bring to the table.
Because in today's interconnected world, security is no longer optional. It's essential.
That's it for this deep dive into the world of CSOs. Thanks for joining us, and until next time, stay curious and stay secure.